everybody. I'm Jesse Waters, along with Judge Jeanine Pirro, Harold Ford Jr., Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Looking at myself. The big guy's breaking his silence. Joe Biden emerging from his timeout after Kamala yanked him off the campaign trail for calling Trump supporters trash. The president had a big goofy grin on his face, looking vindicated and liberated after Nancy Pelosi's mutiny cratered harder than one of the stocks she just dumped. Biden reacting to his Veep's crushing defeat to Donald Trump.
The people vote and choose their own leaders, and they do it peacefully. And we're in a democracy. The will of the people always prevails. Yesterday, I also spoke with Vice President Harris. She has a backbone like a ramrod. She has great character, true character. She gave her whole heart and effort. Something that I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable.
It's also the first time we got to hear from the binder on Kamala's defeat. And things got a little heated when the White House's fear-mongering hypocrisy got called out. Watch.
This administration messaged to millions of Americans that they're going to wake up the day after the election if Trump won and have their rights stripped away, that democracy would crumble, and the president said today we're going to be okay. So how do you square that?
We respect the election process.
Is the message to people who are fearful based on what the messaging was about mistakes?
Well, now you're just twisting everything around, and that's really unfair. I do not appreciate having my words twisted. That is, I am being very clear, very clear about what the president wants to do.
But Team Biden isn't going to let a bunch of dog-faced pony soldiers blame Joe for Kamala's embarrassing loss. No. They ran to the Atlantic to boast about how Joe would have won this thing. Quote, members of Biden's clan continue to stoke the delusion that its paterfamilias would have won the election. And some of his advisors feared that he might publicly voice that deeply misguided view. But it looks like the finger pointing is in every direction.
He promised to be a transitional president. When he decided to stay, the Democrats were in a quandary because they were expecting him to leave.
Can you imagine blaming Joe Biden for her loss? She lost, he didn't lose.
It was basically, if anyone has seen Game of Thrones, it was a red wedding. It was a bloodbath. So everyone is in a state of shock.
You did say in an interview last night that you thought that Tim Walz was part of the problem.
I do. Well, I'm biased. I'm from Pennsylvania.
All right, we do have a Democrat here at the table. We'd like you to begin finger pointing. Go ahead.
It's good to be with everybody. What a night. Congratulations again to President Trump. And congrats to those Senate Republicans and other House Republicans. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Maybe they run the gamut here. I've listened to some of the Democrats here, Jesse, over the last several days, and listened to some Republicans. And here's my takeaway. Democrats need to listen, and I would argue some traditional Republicans need to listen. Everyone thought 2016 was an aberration, that Donald Trump couldn't have been elected because he basically betrayed a lot of the things the Republicans thought they needed to do in order to win. They thought they needed to have a different kind of immigration policy. They thought they needed to be a different kind of inclusive. Donald Trump was inclusive, but his inclusion dealt with economic issues. He wanted to deal with the economic anxieties and frustrations of Americans. So in many ways, this victory of his just 2 days ago, it seems like it was longer, was conventional in the sense that it's always about the economy. Democrats wanted to paint this race as being a referendum on democracy, and it was. Most Americans, however, describe democracy as having neighborhoods that were crime-free, having borders that were secure, having their little girls not be concerned if little boys are going to play in their sports, let alone come in their bathrooms. And Democrats tried to push on people, particularly liberal Democrats, had this sense that endless whining and crying, endless condescension, endless judging of people somehow or another would make people come to their side. As a party, we have to understand that doesn't work. And people are entitled to their own versions of freedom. Now, Republicans and Americans who supported Donald Trump, they aren't Hitler-like or fascist. There's nothing wrong with them for making the calculation that Donald Trump could do a better job for me than Kamala Harris. I think as Kamala Harris looks back at this race, she'll have some regrets about, should I have done more interviews? Should I've explained better my position on issues? Should I have talked about my differences with Joe Biden earlier? I think the recriminations about whether Biden should have stepped down earlier is probably an argument that can be had there. But at the end of the day, when you're the nominee, you've got to be the nominee. And those in our party who are way to the left, who are described as progressives and liberals, I think there's a wake-up call for them because they are a part of our party. But their voices cannot be the dominant ones any longer if indeed we want to win. What happened on Tuesday was historic. A guy who many in my party believe is Hitler was elected for the second time with as broad a coalition as I've seen in Republican, racially, religious, ethnic diversity. It was a meaningful and measurable victory by him. And for Democrats to try to chalk this up as you people don't understand what you've done, America is going. I believe in America as much today as I did on Monday. And I believe my party has to change to ensure that our values and our priorities are aligned with the majority of Americans, because clearly, as we sit here today, they're not.
Well said. You know who seemed changed, Judge Jeanine? Joe Biden seemed like he had a little pep in his step today. Did you notice that?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. That's really surprising. Look, Joe Biden knows that he outperformed Kamala when he ran in 2020 and in virtually every state and with every group. So he can leave office saying, you know, I did the right thing for the party and you suckers, I could have won this. But you know what? It's shame on the Democrat Party. I mean, how blind are they? They are the ones who claim that they were saving democracy. And the truth is they destroyed democracy by not even allowing a primary in their own party, by saying we're going to allow this woman who never got one vote to be a vice presidential candidate when she ran for president in 2019. She didn't get one vote to run for president in the 2024 race. And they talk about democracy. They just moved her up. She just kept getting moved up. And how non-introspective can they be to not realize the woman didn't answer any questions? It was as though here she is, this understudy in the White House for 4 years who can't even articulate how she's changed, what she believes, how she's going to help America. They just weren't credible. And you know who knew it? The Raging Cajun. He knew it. He said, you know what? You people are speaking nonsense to the American people, which is why Donald Trump, and he's not Hitler and he's not a fascist, which is why he won, because they don't believe the Democrat Party and they better change their approach or they're not going to win again for a long time. And finally, you know, Nancy Pelosi, I mean, she gets up and says Joe Biden belongs on Mount Rushmore, but she arranges the coup. I mean, they're not believable.
You know what the Democrats aren't pointing fingers at? The border, the spending, all the stuff that got us into this mess.
There's plenty of blame to go around. This is a phrase I just coined in the commercial break earlier before. There's also this. She raised over $1 billion in that 4 months, 107 days. On October 16th, she had $118 million in the bank. And they ended the campaign $20 million in debt. Like, are these the kind of people you want? Yeah. First of all, in charge of the federal, your tax dollars, but also they asked their supporters for so much money, and they sold them a bill of goods on. They still are, yeah. And they sold them. And that morning, they told everyone that they could win all 7 states, right? So I think that the blame is not just at the candidates and the message and the policies, but also at their consultants who fleece them and their supporters for not only their money, but their time. I also think that there might be something happening. Seth Moulton is a congressman, Democrat, who is an independent thinker, or a war veteran. But he said something today that I think is interesting. If I could read from my phone, sorry, I didn't print it out. He said, Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone rather than being brutally honest about the challenge many Americans face. I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. So a lot of the blame also needs to go to the people who are on the extremes, who run a lot of the social media and the cable producers, who are basically making common sense the enemy of the Democratic Party.
You're hearing that a lot, that Kamala was afraid to offend people. That's why she ran such a lame campaign.
Well, I mean, there is a counterintuitive intuitive truth here. Like, it's good to be risk averse, but when action is necessary, it's the worst. She was the most risk averse person we've ever seen. It paralyzed her when she spoke. She was afraid to say something wrong. She didn't do anything out of fear. And then she's put up against Trump, who has lived an entire life of calculating and taking risks. He understands that actions are temporary. You can see what happens. What would he used to say? Let's see what happens. He would see what happens. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Democrats created this fallacy that if you did something, it was permanent. You know, it was like, oh, if you reduce immigration, we have no more immigrants. No, we're just actually reducing it. It's like it's like a temperature. You can raise it, you can lower it. Anyway, another story. I'm still trying to figure, what does paterfamilias mean?
I don't know.
All right. So
I don't know what I read.
I was shocked by a number of things that Biden said. We're going to be okay. He said that, which is really weird when your country's run by Hitler. You know, maybe he didn't mean that. Maybe none of them meant it. They had the audacity, you know, to come out and tell people to turn down the temperature. He said, we're going to turn down the temperature. Joe Biden is like the political version of gain of function. You know, he's trying to cure the disease that he himself created.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Thank you very much. He did look happy. He looked relieved, but you would too if you got bumped from a flight that just went down in flames. You know, no one can say he lost to Donald Trump. They could say he's president barely. In a weird way, he's like Harrison Ford in Air Force One, a fictional president who spent the entire time hiding and trying to save his family. If you remember that movie. But when you make a deal with the devil ultimately collects, and that's what happened on Tuesday. They chose Joe and masqueraded him as a cogent, moderate leader. He was neither. They tried to bamboozle an electorate in order to beat Orange Hitler. The bill came due November 5th. If they hadn't have done that, do you know what? Trump might be leaving in 2 months instead of coming in at 2 months.
That's true.
You know? So all they did was they put off the inevitable.
What was the movie with Nicolas Cage? Con Air.
Con Air.
I love that movie.
So while I was talking, Harold, you were thinking about that. Like, I'm sitting here, I was talking, and you were going like, who was that? What was that movie with Nicolas Cage?
I kind of zoned out when you said Air Force One. I started thinking about Con Air.
Like the last minute of your comments on Monday.
Oh, Harold. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.